games. It's ScrubGames. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames.
How's it going, Scrub Gamers? Welcome back to another video here at ScrubGames. We have the next of our reviews for the set 5 cards. We've reviewed all the blue or Vigilance cards, all the green command cards, and now we're on to red, being Aggression. So if you're interested, stay tuned, and also don't forget you can like, comment, and subscribe to keep updated with my videos as and when they drop. And by clicking that notification bell, you can get alerts when my videos do drop, so you can watch them there and then, or at a later time that suits you best. Because we're all the way to 2,000 subs, and we're currently still under 80 subs away. Well, around about 80 subs away. So getting there closer, if we can get there by the end of the year. So every little helps. And if you have already, thank you very much. So let's get into it and review the aggression cards in set 5 Legends of the Force. So starting off with the villainy cards, we have Acolyte of the Beyond. Now this is a pretty nice one. It's a 2-drop, so it's early. It comes down as early as turn 1. 2-3 is not too bad stats. It is Sith, so it's not got the Force trait, but it will still generate the Force because its effect is on attack. When defeated, the Force is with you, create your Force token. So it's like a way to guarantee that you're going to get the Force, because as soon as you play it out, unless your opponent's going to bounce it or have some other way of taking it out that is not defeating, then you're going to gain the Force, because either they defeat it and you gain the Force, or you attack with it and you gain the Force to them. So even though it's not a Force unit, it will gain the Force, but then it doesn't have the Force trait to get those benefits. Now, there are many red cards that have, if you have a Force unit, gain this to some cards. So pretty nice one. Probably will see play in like villainy red decks that need to generate the Force, because it's an extra 2-drop that can be played out as soon as possible to get you the Force, but isn't that benefit with the Force, but at least it's a way to generate it. So next we have HK47, which is our first legendary. So the first of the legendaries for red, and one in the villainy side. Is a 2-cost 2/4, because once again, mostly like the stats in this set are being boosted up, and this is a pretty nice one, having a 2-drop 2/4, so you can kind of go ahead and have a solid turn 1 play. Now it doesn't have the Force trait, so it's not going to gain you the Force, but it is pretty nice. A Sith droid, and it's got a little nice effect where one enemy unit is defeated, deal 1 damage to its controller's base. So it's got like a benefit. This is a, once again, well, not once again, but this is a Legends card as well. So we've seen some Legends cards in blue and green, and this is one of them for red. And it's supposed to, I think, pair well, because it is the bot that is the robot. As far as I remember, is a robot that, a droid that is created by or modified by Raven, or Darth Revan. So that's why it's got the exclamation die meat bag. So it goes well with like his own, like the leader's own effect of taking out things to gain experience, and then when it's defeated, deal damage to a base. So pretty nice card. Like, it's not that like legendary really in terms of stat. Like his stats are pretty good. Like that we're getting now for most, like a few leaders. Well, not a few leaders, but a few cards. And then its effect is not overly like amazing, but it is pretty solid. So a pretty good card. Not sure if it'll see much play. Like, if you don't care about the Force trait, then it's a pretty solid unit to play out for turn 1. But outside of that, it's not that impressive. Sticking with the 2 costs, so the turn 1 plays, we got Strike Ship. This is a 2-cost 0/3 ship with Underworld Vehicle Fighter and a new Nile trait. So first the Nile cards. Now it's got Raid 3, so what doesn't have any power, it's still going to hit for free when it swings. So it's technically a 2-cost 3/3, just offensively, not defensively. And also Overwhelm's just going to do some piercing if it goes through as well. So a pretty solid one. And anytime people see this, or even myself, when I see cards like this, which have pretty good aggressive potential with Raid 2, this you can think of like Grand Inquisitor. Like, what this is a card for Grand Inquisitor, like basically just deal 2 damage to you, restand, swing straight away, and gives benefits like that. Now it is a nice card, but then it's almost like the villainy version of Green Squadron A-Wing, where it still hits hard as a 3/3 when it swings, but defensively it's not got much power. But it's a little weaker in the one. But then it's pretty nice another underworld card for, say, Cad Bane and things like that as well. So a pretty decent card. We'll see some play, and hopefully we'll see more of the Nile trait and more benefits from that. Moving on to our 2-cost plays, or turn 2 plays, or our 3-cost cards. We have Grand Inquisitor being our second legendary for the villainy side of red. and this is a free cost 3/4, so not the like best stats we've seen on units, like not a 3/5, which could have been cool, but still a 3/4 is pretty solid. Force Imperial Inquisitor is pretty nice. Also comes in with Hidden, so it can be attacked the least the tin is played. Has raid 1 as well, so it's technically a free cost 4/4 because it swings and gains extra power. And has the extra little ability where ever friendly Inquisitors gain Hidden. So it means when they come in, they can be protected with Hidden thanks to this, which is pretty nice. So a really nice unit, pretty cool art as well, and a pretty solid one. It's being a Force unit is very beneficial as well because there's some good cards in red for the Force, and it's pretty decent legendary. Like it's solid stats, solid abilities, and great traits as well. So I think this will probably see play in the future, and it'll be one of the more decent legendaries in the set. Next we have Purge Troopers, so some more Imperial cards, and another Trooper as well for those Trooper traits we saw that you can get the benefit thanks to Enoch in yellow, or I think red. Sorry, no, green. That's the one. So we got the Purge Trooper being a free cost 4/2, so pretty heavy on the power, weak on the health. But when played, has a you may deal 2 damage to a Force unit. So we'd like kind of chip away at Force units. 2 isn't enough, doesn't really take anything out or do much. A little bit of chip damage, but then it's normally going to be taken out quite easily due to 2 health. So pretty decent, and it does give some more benefits to the like Imperial cards, like more Imperial support for red, but it's nothing really that impressive. Next, we have the heavy missile gunships. We're starting up the 4 cost now, and this is a 4 cost for free. Separatist droid vehicle and transport, so pretty solid stats there. Pretty nice to go. Like maybe if you want to go for a red version of Dooku, you can have this as another good good option. Come down for 2 costs on turn. Well, yeah, turn 2 costs on turn 2, and it's got the action where you can tap it and deal 2 damage to a ground unit. So it could be a unit you keep in the space arena, doesn't really attack, but then starts throwing damage at ground units, helps you take him out a little bit easier, which could be maybe handy, pretty nice. But then his health isn't that great. If it was a bit more bulky, maybe it could defend a little bit easier. But just like you'd be taken out quite easily by some of the many ambush or even like early costing space units as well. Next, we have the Scythe, so never card that you can throw in Grand Inquisitor that gives a little bit of benefit. So we got the Scythe, 4 cost, 3/5. So it's got the best kind of stats for a 3 cost, but on a 4 cost. Main traits you got here are Imperial and Inquisitor, because it's got on attack, you may give another friendly Inquisitor unit plus 2 power for this phase. So separating from the Inquisitors by being in the space arena and being Inquisitor itself is pretty nice. So with what's it called, the Grand Inquisitor, it can come in with Hidden as well, so it's got like benefits from there. And Imperial means you can get some buffs from those Imperial cards, and also an Imperial support for the trait. And then whenever it attacks, you can buff it when you're Inquisitors, and there's a fair few, well, not too many, but there's some more now, and I think there's even more coming in the set. And you can get some more benefits from even the set 1/1s as well, like Fifth Brother and stuff like that, which is pretty nice. So some more benefits to the old Grand Inquisitor as well as a new one, and a pretty nice card. Nothing too fancy, but it's mainly going to be used probably for the like Grand Inquisitor than it is for anything else. Then we go to the next one, being Thralls of the Coven. This is another one that you instantly think this is really good for Grand Inquisitor again, the set 1/1, because it's a 5 cost 3/7, so pretty decent stats. Only has a Night trait, so no way to gain the Force by not having Force. But it's got Raid 3, meaning when it attacks, it gains extra 3 power. So in Grand Inquisitor, you can play this out, deal it 2 damage, and then swing straight away for 6 after that, which is pretty strong. And you can keep doing it over and over again, even in its deploy turn. You can pay 2 damage to restand and swing, and then deploy, then swing, ping 1 damage to this to restand and swing again. So you can get 2 swings out of it, or if it's down the turn before, you can deal about 5 damage over those 2 turns and then swing for 18 damage, which is pretty impressive. So pretty nice card for Grand Inquisitor, but outside that, pretty good for the draft and sealed, but not that amazing for competitive. Next we have Savage Oppress, and this is pretty cool. Like, it's not the best, but it's like a Villainy version of Wrecker in a sense, because just like Wrecker, it costs 6. Just like Wrecker, it has a huge amount of power for its cost, and also Overwhelm as well, so you can come out and pierce. But the differences that are in there, because unlike Wrecker, it doesn't require you to kill off one of your resources, so you can do some damage, but then that reduces this kind of damage you can just throw around to your base. But it's got a bit more power than Wrecker, but then it is lacking because it's got a 1 play when defeated, requiring you to use your force token. So basically, need to use the force, otherwise you take 9 damage to your base. And 9 damage is a hell of a lot of damage. That could be the difference between winning or losing a game, or basically being within lethal and stuff like that. But if you could use the force, it's not too bad because you can play. You can even try to use things like time invention or even ECL to ambush it. But then if you use an ECL, you're probably not gaining the force. So maybe not with that. But then with time invention, you can still, if you're using a force base, gain the force. And the benefit of that is you can use timely, which make it a 7 instead of a 6 cost. But it can come down and attack straight away. But that means that if you've got the force when you do that, then it mitigate, it basically handle the when played by playing using the force because it's played, and then attacking, which again you force back again. So if it does get defeated, you can then use the force again to avoid taking that 9 damage. But this could be a pretty handy one, just to basically just drop this in and pierce through with a 9 power unit, which is pretty nice. But it requires you to use the force. If you're not using it, it's not going to be played. If you use the force, it could be a good option if you can ambush it. Then moving on to the upgrades, we've got Sith Holocron. I think that we've seen that there is a Holocron in blue for the heroic side. So we've got the Sith Holocron in the villainy side of Aggression. And it's a 1-cost 1/1 upgrade that attaches to a force unit, and then the attached unit gains on attack. You may deal 2 damage to a friendly unit. If you do, this unit gains, this unit gains 2 power for the attack. So not too bad. Basically, allowing you to do damage to another unit just to gain power on unit, which could help out with things like if you've got another unit that's got grit, doing damage to it so it powers up and have more power from that attack. Or if you've got something that was as a win defeat trigger that's already attacked, finish off with this little bit of damage and swing for an extra 2 power, which is pretty nice. So pretty interesting. Not sure how great it'd be competitively, but it's a nice option, especially a pretty good one for sealed as well. Next we got Battle Fury, and this is a pretty interesting one because it's a way how you can in a villainy red deck, how you could help trigger that Anakin we saw the legendaries effects to get both the -3/3s through setting up stuff in your discard, because it's a 2-cost upgrade. It gets 3/3, so it's like a Villainy Aggression version of Entrenched. It doesn't prevent you from going to base, but it does give you a negative ability, just like Entrenched, which is on attack, you have to discard a card from your hand. So if you only got 1 card in your hand, you have to discard a card. If you've got no cards in your hand, you don't have to discard. But on attack, if you have a card in your hand, you have to discard it. So this can be alright, especially if you got something you don't really care about, or if you something you want to put in the discard. Like I said, with Anakin, you can help set this up by if you play the villainy card, it's a villainy card, but you can then swing and discard a heroic card from your hand just to have that heroic card you drop. So when you play Anakin, you can get both the minuses 3/3 from both effects. So pretty interesting one. Just requires setup, but it's pretty nice. Probably better in sealed than it is competitive. And then the last of the upgrades for Aggression Red, Aggression Villainy, we got Darth Maul's lightsaber, and this is one, unlike Yoda's and the other ones we've seen that are new ones of certain characters. This one gets more benefit on the certain character. So it's Darth Maul's lightsaber. 3-cost upgrade that gives an extra 4 power and 2 health. So pretty good stats for 3 costs. Like instead of 3/3, it's more towards power than his health. Attached to a non-vehicle unit, and in one played, if the attached unit is Darth Maul, and do remember there are different types of Maul in the game. There's cards that are just Maul from when he's in the Clone Wars, he takes over Mandalore, and there's Darth Maul, which is from the first film, episode 1. So if the attached unit is Darth Maul, it has to be Darth Maul, not just Maul. Darth Maul. You may attack with him, and for this attack, he gains Overwhelm and can attack bases. So I can attack bases. Overwhelm allows to attack in the units and then pierce through them, so damage does go to base, but just not directly attacking into him. Pretty nice, and if he survives, then you still got him as a buffed up unit that can then from on attack bases, because it's only on that, when played on that turn, you can attack bases for that attack. Well, no, for that attack. So a pretty nice upgrade from Maul. It's just disappointing that the lead is a little bit lacking, but the set 3 Darth Maul unit is a pretty good one to put this on, considering that you can attack 2 units at the same time. Then we have the last card in the villainy side of Aggression, and that is Deathfield. Nice 4-cost event, force event as well. That deals 2 damage to each non-vehicle enemy unit. So any enemy unit that's not a vehicle, you deal 2 damage to. And then if you control a force unit, you get draw a card. So it's not bad rare. It doesn't require you to use the force mechanic, but it does require you to have a force unit. And every one of those cards with a force unit, you get an extra benefit, which is just drawing a card to replace itself. But then 2 damage to each non-vehicle enemy unit isn't that impressive. especially if you're going to go a space focus deck, which will be all vehicles. It's going to do nothing, so not a great card, but be handy and sealed maybe. So now going to the heroism side, we've got some cool heroic units. We've got first one being Galea. So this is a 2-cost 2 force, like we've seen. I think almost every aspect combo is going to have a 2-cost 2/4 in some sense. So I think some have some from previous sets, and then we're getting more in this one. So we've got Galea, which is a 2-cost 2/4 Force Jedi Republic's a beneficial way to play a force turn 1 force unit to then gain the force, and has a nice little ability which is worthy of rare, which when an opponent plays an event, deal 1 damage to that player's base. So a pretty cool unit. Probably see play for his force decks that want to get in force in the heroic side of aggression. The next one we have is a Toon Fernok, and this is one of the creatures from the Rebel series, and everyone that benefit from Kanan being able to boost creatures as well as Spectres. 2-cost 4/1, so a lot of power but very low HP, which can then be pinged by things like Quinlan or even Cad Bane, so not great against those. And that's hidden, so it can't be attacked into, but then there's different ways you can kind of finish it off. So normally going to be taken out the next turn unless it can be shielded by Kanan, but outside that, not a great one for competitive. Next we have Jedi Starfire, so a new space unit. So the problem with this kind of for like space units in like cheap space units in the aggression is you've got quite a lot of competing to do against some of the spaceships. There's quite a few good ones in the heroic side, and Jedi Starfire it does have 1 more health, 4 and 1 power and 4 health. It doesn't do much unless you're against other space units. So wherever one's like Grease Watch and A-Wing, you just swing your opponent's base for free. Doesn't have to really matter much. This one, it's on attack. You may deal 1 damage to a space unit. So then again, it's like a 2/4 for space, technically in a sense, but not the greatest. So not too bad. But then it's outclassed by some older ones. But when rotation hits, it'd be better. But until then, it's probably going to be not being picked over some of the other space units. Next, we got Jedi Knight, a nice 3-cost 3/3 Force Jedi unit, and never Legends card as well, with a nice little effect where when played, if you have the initiative, deal 2 damage to an enemy ground unit. So that's pretty nice. Where if you play, if you have the initiative, or if you went first in the game, you're normally going to play your unit. Your opponent's going to play a unit you got to claim, and then you're going to swing with your unit first, and they swing with theirs. Then while you still got the initiative, you can play this out and damage it for 2, which could be handy. So I think a pretty decent unit. This is a cheap, a low costing force unit you can play for aggression, which is pretty nice. But it could be used, but it's probably better in sealed. But then it's a pretty nice one if you want to generate force and need force units as well. Next, we have a new Kiadi-Mundi. So Kiadi-Mundi in red instead of blue. 4-cost 4/4, pretty solid stats we've seen off other units like K2SO. And it will compete with K2SO for that, but then it's going to be more for a force focus deck than a just generic deck like K2SO slots in. And when rotation happens, Kiadi is going to be available, K2SO is not. And it's got a very nice effect to make use of the force token, which is when played, you can use the force. If you do, draw 2 cards. So you can use your force token to draw 2 cards with this, which is pretty nice. And it's a pretty solid card. This is a 4-cost 4/4 is pretty handy as well. Like very good stats. Very nice effect. We'll probably see a lot of play in the force decks that use the force. Next we have Kit-Fisted Eversprite, which is like the new bigger version of Disabling Fangfire, because it kind of does the same thing, but a little bit better. So Disabling Fangfire, if you don't remember, if you haven't seen previous sets, it is a 3-cost space unit that has 3 power, 2 health, that when played, defeats an upgrade on a unit. Kit-Fisted's Eversprite does the same thing, but a lot better. It's more expensive, but a little bit better. It's a 5-cost 4/5, so it's more costly, but better stats in 1 more health, or 1 more power, 3 more health. Also has better traits in Jedi Republic Fighter and Vehicle. Also has Saboteur as well, so it can ignore Sentinels or defeat shields on unit attacks. And it's also got when played, you may defeat any number of upgrades on a unit. So it's not just defeating 1 upgrade, like the same thing it does, it's defeating all upgrades. It could be handy if you're going against a new Kylo, and your opponent deploys it with a ton of upgrades on, you can play this, knock them all, and not have to worry too much about that, which is pretty good. Or if before they attack with them, if they're not playing the yellow version with Snapshot, you can play this and knock all those upgrades off, and they spend the whole turn putting on. It's pretty good. And I think it got pretty nice and good going forward. Next we have Ray, and this is an interesting rare because it's one of those ones you kind of don't want to play, but you want to draw in some fashion or some way outside the draw phase. And there's not many ways that I feel you can kind of do that. I think if you can consistently get it put back on top of your deck in some way, you can kind of make use of this with the Yoda deck because it has the ability to, if something left play, draw a card, then either put a card on top or bottom. So if you can kind of keep putting out with some other card, put Ray on top of your deck with some other effect, you can then use Yoda to draw it so you can trigger this because it's got a pretty nice ability. It's not too bad on the stats as well. It's a 5 cost 5/5, Force Jedi and Resistance, so it's decent decent traits. And its effect is when you draw this card during the action phase, so not during the resupply phase at the end of the turn, but during the action phase before that. If you control a red leader or base, you may reveal this card in your hand, and if you do, deal 2 damage to a unit and 2 damage to a base. It's like a Ruthless Raider. It's got a Ruthless Raider effect to deal 2 damage to a unit and a base, as long as you can keep drawing it during the action phase. So if there's a consistent way to put it on top of your deck, then draw it with Yoda and things like that, you can consistently do that every turn, which would be pretty nice to make a little burn deck with Yoda. But outside of that, there's not many ways you can trigger it or how to trigger it outside of luck. So it's not too great, but I could see better play, a more useful play, depending on what we get in the next 4 sets before it gets rotated out. Next, we got Mace Window, and this is a pretty nice one. A Noon Mace Window. It's a 6 cost 6/6, so it's pretty solid stats. Good traits in Force Jedi Republic. Overwhelm as well as it does piercing, and it's never one like Villainy Monday that you use the Force to be able to do something cool. And this is when played, you can use the Force, and if you do, deal 4 damage to a unit. So there's a little bit of damage done, so you can do about 10 damage in overall by its effect and by attacking into something, which is pretty nice. So it's like a nice little. It's like got that side of a wrecker where you can do damage when played, but instead of having to sack off one of your resources, you get to just use the Force to deal damage. And this is a pretty nice one. Just like with some other units that use the Force, it can't really be cheated out by Jedi Counselor to then go ahead and do it because Jedi Counselor uses the Force to play out a card. So you won't play Force cards that you need to use the Force for the on plays for that. But this is still a pretty nice card to help. 4 damage is a pretty decent amount of damage to do and finish something off, or put something within range for something else to attack into, and then have this 6/6 on board. Next we have Sin Draglin, and this is the Esteemed Blade Master, an 8 cost 5/6. So not the best stats for its cost, but good traits. And when played, you may play a lightsaber from your hand for free on this unit if you do ready him. So this is one of the new legendaries as well. So this is I think it's the first legendary. Yeah, the first legendary in the heroic side. So the heroic side of aggression gets 1 legendary. The villainy side only gets 2. So there are some kind of differences between them. But it's pretty cool. There are a fair few lightsabers. There are a lot of lightsabers now, given this set has a lot more. So there's a few you can put on. You can put on General's Blade on him. The restamps you can attack and the plays like cheap, or Jedi's lightsaber as well. Just give a nice boost, and most of them give the ones from previous sets, they give them a free boost that turn him into technically an 8/9. So the upgrade, the lightsaber you put on him, you put on for free as well, so no paying the resources, just put on for free. It's going to make him up to decent stats for its cost. At the moment, on his own, his stats aren't good for an 8 cost, but a lightsaber you put on him, so you need 2 cards to potentially fully use him. And he comes in, puts the lightsaber on him, and then he gets to ready himself as well. So that's pretty cool. Pretty nice unit. I'm not sure how great it's going to be. It's not one of the most impressive legendaries, but it's a pretty solid one, and it's going to be very good in draft as well, unsealed. Next, we go on to a lightsaber you can put on Chin, which is Night Saber. So it's a 2 cost 3/2 boosting lightsaber, and its effect is just attached to a Jedi non-vehicle unit. So you can attach it to a Jedi, and it has to be a non-vehicle Jedi unit. Because otherwise, if it's just Jedi, you can put on things like Kit Festo's Aether Sprite and stuff like that. But it's a pretty good one because it's pretty strong because it's only 2 costing, so pretty cheap, but it gives an extra 3 power and 2 health. So that's like the cost of some 2 cost units you can get out, and that's pretty good stat buff. No other effect because it's given pretty good stat buffs for a low cost. So pretty nice lightsaber there. Not sure how much it is you play, but it is a solid upgrade if you want to buff up things, especially in draft and sealed. And then the last of the heroic ones we've got is Focus Determines Reality, and just a nice little art of Qui-Gon when he's in the episode 1, where he's trying to basically cut through a door. And it's a 2-cost event that gives each friendly force unit raid 1 and Saboteur for this phase. So not just Jedi, just any force unit, raid 1, so that means they can attack for a little bit more, and Saboteur means they can defeat shields and units they attack and ignore sentinels, which is pretty good. Not sure how great it'd be in the depending on the deck in a competitive, but it's a pretty nice one for draft and sealed. Next we have Paz Vizsla, and this is the only double red card, so double red getting shafted a little bit again because it's probably the weakest of the double aspects, but it seems to get a little bit less in great cards for red or even cards in general. And we only get one double red card for this set. Well, so far blue and green both have 2. And it's a rare as well, so not too bad. It's a 5-cost free 6 Mandalorian, so it's a Mandalorian. So it's the second Mandalorian you've got along with Bo-Katan. I'm not sure if there's not really many leaders, not many Mandalorian leaders, and they don't really want to give double red. They want to make use of all the Mandalorians. But this one is pretty nice because this unit gains extra 2 power for every damage on him. So 1 damage gives an extra 2 power. So by having 1 damage on him, he then goes down to 5 remaining health, but then 5 power. And it just gets stronger from there. Like if you do the maximum damage you can do without taking him out, which is 5 damage, it then gains a huge 10 extra power, making him with 5 damage on him becomes technically a 13-1 because he's got 1 health left but 13 power. So pretty strong there. Pretty cool, especially with the Grand Inquisitor, because if you got set 1 Grand Inquisitor, you play this out, you then deal 2 damage to it. So it's a restun because it's 3 power. Then from then on, you can't restun it again because then it's got more power than 3 for a Grand Inquisitor. But now it's getting extra 4 power because it's taking 2 damage. So it becomes down technically as a 7-4 in Grand Inquisitor. I can attack straight away the same turn it's been played, which is pretty cool. So pretty nice card. Not sure if it's going to be huge because it's double red, but then double red doesn't have the best stats and best cards, and even then is only got the Mandalorian trait. Stats alright for its cost, but then I'm not sure how much they play, but it's a pretty nice addition. At least have something for double red. So now moving on through the just normal aggression cards, we've got Witch of the Mist being a 1-cost 1/3 force unit that has hidden. Pretty nice turn 1 play. Comes in, it can't be attacked in. Decent stats for a 1-cost, so you can try and use it to get into force. Pretty solid. Not sure if it's going to see too much play, but it's a good option if you need a force unit at turn 1 to be able to attack and gain you to force. Next we've got DRK1 Probe Droid, so a 2-cost 2/3 droid. When played, you can defeat a non-unique upgrade, so more upgrade removal, but then it's more for general upgrade. So it can only defeat a non-unique upgrade. So that's shields and experience, plus any other upgrade that's put on that's not got the unique trait, which is like I'm trying to think now, like what could it be? I don't know if it's. I think like Yoda's lightsaber will probably be a good, because I think Yoda's lightsaber and Maul's lightsaber are both unique upgrades. So knocking off those like named upgrades can go ahead, because they're only one of that kind because they're that one person's card. So doing it knock off those kind of upgrades is pretty cool, but again, doesn't have as much flexibility as other kind of upgrade removal, but it's still nice to have. Next we have Infused Brawler, and this is a never turn 1 force you can put down, a 2-cost 2/2, so not the best stats, but still a force you can play turn 1. But if you want to play it, you normally want to get the full benefit of it by using the force, which you won't be getting by playing as your first action for the game. Because when played, you can use the force, and if you do, you give it 2 experience tokens, so it's then got, it becomes a 4/4, so it's pretty good for taking some opponent's units, but then when this unit completes an attack, you defeat an experience on it, mean you lose the experience every time, so it gets weaker and weaker as it attacks. So not too bad, but not amazing. Then jumping into the 3 costs, we have Cartel and Scepter. So this is a nice new space unit. So one of the cartels, 1 more costing, same stats as the Cartel Spacer in yellow, but it's a 3 cost, sorry, not 2 cost, 3 cost, 2 power 3 health unit with raid 2, so it's going to hit pretty hard. And Underworld's a nice new upgrade to like more Underworld support for Cad Bane red. Then we've got Hyena Bomber being a new separatist droid space unit, being a free cost 2/2 that when played, if you control another aggression unit, you deal 2 damage to a ground unit. So a nice little bit of chip damage to help build your opponent's units. Not amazing, but it's good for draft. Then we go on to another kind of unit. We've got this Jedi in Hiding, a pretty nice one. It's a free cost 3/3, so decent stats. A Force Jedi as well, so a way to get you to force by attacking with it. Has hidden as well, so it can't be attacked the same turn it's played, so it's got a protection from attacks at least there. And then it's got a nice one defeated, allowing you to use the Force. And if you do, each opponent discards a card from their hand. So it's pretty nice to be able to have this out, and if your opponent does take out what you got the Force, you can use the Force, so make use of it, and then make them discard a card from hand. Now they get to choose, but you're still limiting their card a little bit of hand control, which is pretty nice. Next, we've got Merrin, another free cost, but then not as amazing stats as she could have, being a 2/5 instead of a 3/5, but still not too bad. A Force unit as well, so she can gain the Force, and has a handy way as well as we've seen with that upgrade in Villainy side, where she can set up things like Anakin by getting that heroic unit in your discard, so you can get both the -3/3s more easily. Because she's got a nice effect where on attack you can discard a card from your hand, and if you do, deal 2 damage to a unit. So there's nice ways you can swing up to things that have 4 health to take them out by that, and plus taking out basically dishing a card to deal 2 damage. So pretty nice. And with things like the Obi-Wan leader, you can boost her up then to a 3/6. So very nice unit, very solid, and I reckon it's going to see a good amount of play in cards that, even if they didn't use the Force, as a very solid unit. Next we have Tuk Atta. I think it's Tuk Atta. Free cost, this is essentially a higher costing but higher statted version of the, I can't remember what the unit's called now. It was the heroic one, the Fernok. That's it. Because it's a free cost for 2 creature with hidden, just like how the other one was a 1 cost for 1 unit with hidden, and it's the same thing. Nothing amazing. One from the Legends, which is cool. The art isn't that impressive, but yeah, it's more of a draft card. Then jumping to our next new one, we've got Quinlan Voss, being a pretty nice one. Same stats as Kanan we saw from the heroic side in blue in set 1, being a 4 cost 4/5. Solid stats, Force Jedi Republic, and has an on attack. Where if this unit has 6 or more power, you may deal 2 damage to an enemy base. So pretty sick there. Be able to come down and, well, if you buff it up, or if you just give it a bit more power, like you use a Maz Kanata, for example, to attack at 6, it then deal 2 damage to your opponent's base. Or if you put an upgrade on it, it can buff it up. So a very solid unit, very solid stats, good, and it's going to be using competitive and draft to sealed as well. Next, we've got a Sarge Ventress, being a 1 cost higher, so a 5 cost 5/6. So just slightly higher stats and cost 1 on everything to Quinlan, whereas Quinlan was a 4/4/5. This is a 5/5/6. And has a pretty solid when played on attack to give a never friendly Force unit +2 power for this phase. So nice, really nice synergy for Kanan. Well, sorry, not Kanan, Quinlan. But also a very nice little unit for any Force leader and other Force guards, because you don't have to boost any friendly Force unit, even leader stuff. Very nice traits in Force Knight and Bounty Hunter as well. And it pairs very well Quinlan, because I didn't realize until I was reading up the other day that Quinlan and Sarge become like lovers, I think, in the in one storyline. So they become like an item together. So they kind of synergize in that. She can buff him, and then he can then hit a lot harder. So that's why they synergize so well together. So both very good uncommons, and I feel we'll see a good amount of play in the upcoming set. Next, we've got Blockade Runner, and this is a pretty interesting one. A 5 cost 4/4 Rebel vehicle capital ship. Has Saboteur, so it can ignore Sentinels and defeat shields, and it's got a pretty cool ability that can allow it to potentially go ahead and just snowball, because its effect is when this unit deals combat damage to a base, you may give an experience token to this unit. So with Saboteur as well, you're not going to be able to stop it with a Sentinel from attacking your base, so you've got to use other things to stop it from attacking. But anytime it does damage to your opponent's base, you will then buff it up by experience. It gets stronger the more attacks it gets into your opponent's base. So pretty nice one. Not sure about the competitive side of it, but sealed and draft is very good. Next we have Say Tin. So this is a 5 cost 4/6 Republic Force unit. So when played, if you have the initiative, you can do up to 3 reach, 1 damage to up to 3 units. So this would have been really good for a really nice new addition to Jango Fett, but he is suspended, so he's kind of out the picture and not about anymore. So can't benefit there. And even then, if you compare the effect's not amazing. Like you saw, you might be able to ping some damage, maybe finish some things off and get some tiny things or tokens taken out. But if you compare this to a Sage in the same set, in the same similar traits, unless you want if you just want the Force trait, a Sage is probably better. If you want the General Republic, it could be handy. But yeah, the Sage is just a lot better than this. Next, we've got another creature being a 6-cost Ravenous Raftar, being a 8/5, so a heavy hitting unit. So this is pretty interesting. But again, once again, another one of those units where unless you're playing Kanan to kind of focus on creatures, then it's going to be more of a draft seal card than it is competitive play. Then we get another capital ship because we got to get some more capital ships in there to make sure our Pierre does have his more options after rotation hits. And this is 7-cost 5/9. So in Pierre, you can get this out on 5 resources, given the as long as you deploy them. And 5/6. 5/9 is pretty good, and even then you can play this if you go for a red version of Dooku, which seems to be a little bit more of an option with a fair few separatist red cards in this set, and so you can get him out on 5 resources as well, and pretty strong at 5/9. It's pretty strong stats, and gives all friendly droid units an extra they game rate too. So it's pretty good if you go for a droid focus on a Dooku, which I'm not sure if there's many droids in green for her. I know there are some. I know there's the assassin droid, but yeah, if you can get a fair few droids in, which I think all those the Aspect Lust 2-cost ship from the last set is a droid, so you can get the benefit of that with Dooku as well. Get Invisible Hand, get the turn before this, come out and start spamming those, and then this can give him all raid 2, which is pretty strong, and make him all heavy hitters. So potentially opening up a pretty interesting list for Dooku Red, but outside of that, I don't think it's that amazing. Well, not amazing for a Piet, but yeah, outside of that kind of Dooku Red thing, I don't think this is that great, especially for a rare. Then we come across our next legendary, being Bendu, being this time coming out of blue, but going in his storm, fearful storm form, as an 8-cost 10/10, so it's pretty cool. A forcing creature as well, so you got some cool now there are 2 of them shenanigans to drop this 2 turns. I think 2 turns earlier, so you can get him out on 6 instead by using another 2 of them, which is pretty cool. And an 8-cost 10/10 as well. When I first read the article about potentially reprinting the units with 10/10 stats, I honestly thought it was going to be reprints of Zillow Beast and Great Dragon, but no, they've done the same thing of bring those units out. While units with 10/10 stats, new bigger creatures like those ones are, but different grunts. So it's pretty cool. Bendu, nice on attack where you deal 3 damage to each other unit. But remember, that's all units, not just your opponents, your units as well. So if you've got other units, they take 3 damage whenever you attack with it. So pretty solid, not great and competitive, but a very good one for draft and sealed. Next we have Heavy Blaster Cannon, so the only upgrade for the normal, basically just aggression. And it's pretty cool one, a 4-cost 2/2, nice little Gatling gun. Attached to any non-vehicle unit, because it's a heavy blaster cannon, that's a handheld one. And when played, you may deal 1 damage to a ground unit. Then we deal 1 damage to the same unit, and then deal 1 damage to the same unit. So essentially, you do open area and pings the damage 1/1/1 to the same unit. So you deal 3 damage to the same unit, but you do it 1 damage at a time to the unit, just in case there's something like things that are relevant off the trigger. But it's not too bad. Quite a high costing upgrade. Only gives 2/2 to the buff, but then does 3 damage as well to a unit, which is pretty interesting. Just not sure I was going to see much competitive play, but good in sealed and draft. Next, we have first the event. So we got Sorcerer's Blast, being a new kind of daring rate. Well, not I wouldn't say daring rate actually, because it's just a new way to deal damage. Being a 1-cost event that allows you to use. Well, if you use the Force. You use the Force, and if you do, deal 3 damage to units. It's a nice way to deal out chip damage for free. Well, for cheap, not for free, but one resource to do 3 damage. But you have to use the Force unless you have the Force. Can't really use it. But then, if you need more ways to use the Force, this is a good one. Next, we have Unleash Rage, another event that allows you to use the Force. So a 1-cost event, use the Force, and if you do, give a friendly unit 3+ power for this phase. A way to kind of boost up a unit, but I don't know how beneficial this is going to be, because you do buff a unit, but then your opponent's then got an action to go ahead and deal with that unit you've just buffed up. It's not as great as with because it's only temporary. It's not just permanent. You get the free extra power. It's temporary. It's just about a phase. But you got better events, even though it's more this costs a little bit less. You got better events like surprise attack, which allows you to buff that unit up and allow it attack for that. Well, it doesn't get for phase, it allows you to attack with that much power to get attacking straight away, get more actions by buffing and attacking in one. Whereas buff, and you got to use an action attack, which gives your opponent a chance to kind of deal with it. So not amazing, but more ways to use the force. Next we have Ataru Onslaught. So this is a pretty nice 2-cost event that allows you to ready a force unit with 4 less power. So it's a less restrictive of the set 1 event. Allows you to restand a unit that has 3 less power. So that was able to withstand anything that had 3 less power. So it had like random Inquisitor kind of feel to it. This one allows you to restand, well, ready any force unit that has 4 less power, which could be leaders as well. So allowing your leaders to have on attack like Obi-Wan, be able to restand and swing again, buff things, or even Qui-Gon to restand and then swing and bounce stuff and replay something new as well. Pretty cool. So I reckon it's a pretty nice one. Those 4 stacks, now you get some more attacks in. But remember, if you buff a unit and it gives a permanent boost that buffs it higher than 4, you can't restand it. But then if you want to restand it and then add something to it, that's pretty handy. Next, we have a 2-cost event, Do or Do Not, another force event. This never one allows you to use the force, so a fair few in red. And this is, you may use the force, and if you do, draw 2 cards. If you do not, draw a card. So this is essentially basically just a draw 2 if it would 4 stack. So it's like a pot of greed, essentially. If you played Yu-Gi-Oh, it's played pot of greed. But the thing is, with this game, card draw isn't the busted thing it is for some other games. So you can draw 2 cards, you're not really putting anything on board, you're paying 2 to draw 2 cards, you need to get the force first, and you're not really doing anything. You're just drawing 2 cards, which even isn't that many cards. Considering you draw 2 cards a turn anyway, so you can resource 1 and then have 1 to play. It's an alright card. If you don't have much to do or against control next, you just need to draw a little bit more if they're using the force, sure, but it's not that all impressive, but it could be handy in Sword Draft, but not so much in competitive. Next we have Lightsaber Throw, and this is pretty interesting. It's a way to fill your deck with lightsabers, but actually make use of them if you can't equip them to a unit because units aren't sticking. Because a 2-cost event allows you to discard a lightsaber from your hand, and if you do, deal 4 damage to a ground unit and draw a card. So you don't go minus 2, well, -1 on this by using this to discard a card and your opponent losing. So you're taking out one of your opponent's cards but losing 2 yourself. You do get to replace the card you discard, but it's only 4 damage, which might hit a few of the new cards that have 4 health. It will take up most things, like a fair few things probably, but then the problem is you've got to have a lightsaber with it. If you don't have a lightsaber with it, it does nothing. So you've got to have more lightsabers than you need, but then you're losing a lightsaber just to do 4 damage, draw a card. So it's not a great card. In sealed, maybe, but in competitive, not so much. And then we've got the last red card being Time of Crisis. This is a 4-cost event that makes each player choose a unit they control, and then you deal 3 damage to each other unit that not chosen this way. So both of you and your opponent choose a card you control, and anything else that wasn't the chosen cards takes 3 damage. So then you take out your own board. If you only got 1 card, 1 unit, that's fine. You got 1 unit. But say your opponent's got 3 units, you got 1. You both use it. You just choose the unit you have. They have to choose one of theirs, and the other units take 3 damage, which you can potentially clear out a fair few units from your opponent's board while you've got less than them. But it's not amazing because your opponent's normally going to potentially choose the one that is going to die from the damage. So something else that will survives, and then it's 4 as resource as well. So it doesn't do enough damage to warrant the cost. I wouldn't say it's great, but then sealed it could be quite handy. But that's all the cards for aggression now. So we've gone over all the card aggression. A lot of really nice ones. A lot of abilities in red to kind of use the force and make use of it. So I'm looking forward to playing some red as well. I've got a few decks that have the red aspect in it as well. And yeah, let me know what you think. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.